Howdy y'all, I hope you've had a great day. Silver Trade here again with another video. So now we see why the SEC didn't want to show us those cat numbers, and we're having some more glitches on GME. Interactive Brokers is showing $377 per share for GME. This came out 2 hours ago, and the glitches are always exciting. And seriously, look at that 4 hour. And look at that movement in after hours. I am so excited for next week. But please remember, none of this is financial advice and we are not financial advisors. This video is made for entertainment purposes only. And on April 16th of 2021, so yesterday, 4 years ago, was Roaring Kitty's final YOLO update. Maybe we see him return again soon. Either way, it's looking like it's time for max volume. And really quick, I just wanted to throw it out there so we wouldn't forget, GameStop fell by 40% in 25 minutes 2021.
We are in the middle of what appears to be the 13th maybe trading halt of the session so far. It looks like we just resumed trading again. So again, I think this is by my count. I have to go back and check. It's a lot. It's 13 trading halts right now.
And the TTM squeeze is about to go green on GameStop for the first time since 2021. Very exciting. If you don't know what TTM is, it's when the Bollinger Bands are fully inside of the Keltner channel. And this is on the monthly time frame. And the higher the time frame, the stronger the signal. Very exciting. And if you wouldn't mind, please hit that like button. It really helps me out. Now let's talk about the cat errors that the SEC didn't want to show us. We're going to go over what a cat error is really quick. Think of the cat like a giant digital notebook that writes down every stock trade and who did it across all markets in the US like the NYSE and the NASDAQ. It's there to help the SEC catch bad guys who cheat in the stock market, like trading on secret info or doing shady stuff. So what's a cat error? A cat error happens when a company like a bank or a trading firm messes up the info they're supposed to send to the SEC. So a trader makes a move, then the bank has to report what they did. They send it to cat, but if it's wrong, missing, or late, bam, cat error. Missing as in fake shares. So now that we know what cat errors are, it's pretty crazy that within just 6 days, we're so used to having billions and billions. It did only used to be 2 billion and 4 billion and 2 billion, but the 2 billions have turned to 8 billion. And back in May of 2024, we saw cat errors spike up to 7.2 billion, and then within 70 days afterwards, it ran over 500%. In October of 2023, we saw about 9 billion cat errors and a run of 42% within the next 70 days. And these billions are from 6 days added together. Within the last couple of days, we've seen 80 billion errors. Which is obviously over 10 times higher than we have ever seen before. The highest we ever saw was 8.7 within 6 days, and now we're seeing 77.6 billion within 4 days. This is the most exciting thing we have seen for GameStop in a very long time. And don't forget, there just so happens to be the first glitch we've seen in a while that also happened today. And then really quick, we're going to talk about Credit Suisse and the UBS swaps because they are trying to get out of their obligations. In this, the banks are literally asking to not be forced liquidated. In March 2023, we see a forced merger between the two largest Swiss banks, Credit Suisse and UBS. Swiss authorities did it over the weekend as an emergency bypassing shareholders. The Swiss National Bank guaranteed a 100 billion liquidity line and heavily influenced the limited contact between the two banks alongside regulatory FINRA, with the US Federal Reserve allegedly giving its assent to the deal. I just googled it and it means to express approval or agreement. So the US Fed, Swiss National Bank, and FINRA forced UBS to take over Credit Suisse on a Sunday afternoon with shareholders getting no say. The Swiss government also sealed the document for 50 years. I know that was a lot, but why would the Swiss government want to seal that document for 50 years? And how is that allowed? And in March of 2023, the CFTC also essentially says it will not enforce anything when it comes to swaps, especially if it's related to a bank failure. It's a lot of words for them to say the commission will not commence enforcement action for violations. And in July of 2023, the CFTC extends their no action position on swaps until October 6, 2025. Now, over the years, UBS hasn't had the best time. They've been struggling to integrate Credit Suisse bullet swaps, turning them into Swiss cheese. There are suspicions that the central bank is propping them up. Their auditor has issued warnings about their internal controls over financial reporting, basically meaning that they're cooking the books, and the regulator is still saying they need to be capable of being wound up, basically meaning they're a dead man walking. They're not able to cover their positions. And they're doing rounds of layoffs. They also need to come up with 50% more capital as the Swiss government is proposing higher requirements. UBS has been implementing layoffs as part of its integration of Credit Suisse. Since the acquisition, the bank has cut over 10,000 jobs and aims to continue reducing headcount to achieve its cost-cutting targets. In January of 2025, Rosten Benman, chair of the CFTC, who oversaw the initial swap reporting relaxation and its subsequent extension to the end of this year, has resigned. Is the Swiss National Bank going to have to print to save them and pony up that $100 billion? The CFTC is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. If you wouldn't mind, please give me a like. We're going to talk about Lego really quick, but I have more GameStop to talk about. You'll see how this kind of ties in. Lego was $800 million in debt, losing $1 million per day. They were weeks away from collapsing. They were doing great in the 90s. For a decade, Lego could do no wrong. Everyone loved their bricks. Kids were obsessed. I know I was. So Lego did what most big brands do when they're winning. They get cocky, and they started doing everything. Clothes, watches, TV shows, and theme parks. More ideas, more products, more distractions. But their toys weren't selling, and the magic was fading. The company was quietly falling apart. By 2003, Lego was drowning. $800 million in debt, almost everything they tried had flopped. So Lego tried to get a new CEO who was young and not from the toy industry. He didn't care about the flashy stuff. He asked a brutal question: what if the problem is Lego itself? His first move, he cut the noise. He slashed product lines by 30% and laid off 1,000 people. He kept looking, and it turned out Lego was making over 7,000 unique parts. So obviously very slow and expensive to produce. They simplified everything, fewer brick types, more focus on sets people actually wanted. And they listened to the fans. Adults were still building, so Lego started paying attention and co-creating. Then came the game changer, with big names like Star Wars and Harry Potter. All of a sudden, Lego sets had stories. Sales exploded. Star Wars alone boosted revenue by 35%. They realized storytelling selling bricks. By 2015, Lego passed Mattel to become the biggest toy company in the world, all from getting back to what made them great. So Lego, 2015, was the largest toy company in the world, but in 2003 was in $800 million worth of debt. It took them 12 years. No more distractions, just bricks, and the world's people could build them. Lego didn't innovate by doing more. They saved the brand by doing less and doing it better. Trump media presses U.S. regulators to investigate short positions in its stock. Trump doesn't like how much his stock has been kicked down. It was at 50 in October, and now it's at 22. GameStop on the 4-hour is just screaming bullish. In the after-hours section, GameStop moved up almost 2%, which is very unusual for GameStop, but normally it lets us know to be excited for next Monday. And with us having a 3-day weekend, people are going to be sitting there scrolling their phones more. They're going to hear about how GameStop is about to pump. There's going to be a lot more FOMO. There's going to be a lot more eyes. That long weekend is going to let that bubble of excitement really build up. GameStop was stuck below $27 all week, really. And right at the end of the week, it gets above it. But the fact that GameStop came down and bounced off this purple line, the 5-day moving average, and then jumped back above it and just barely held above it and held right above these other two candles, Tuesday and Wednesday, I think that we're going to see a lot more upside movement next week than we did this week. It had its consolidation, it had its liquidity and volume bounce, Now, I believe next week is the move. Not the move, but a move. And here's MicroStrategy. They went from about $40 per share in 2024 to $500 per share by the $550 per share by the end of 2024 just from buying a ton of Bitcoin. They own like 500,000 Bitcoin. And if GameStop does something similar and goes from $40 to $550 per share, that'd be pretty cool. And the CEO of MicroStrategy is Michael Saylor, this guy. But thank you so much if you made it this far in the video. I really appreciate it. I hope you found some value in here. Thank you, and God bless.